What happens when the bastard daughter everyone mocked becomes the only one powerful enough to save or destroy an entire kingdom? Stay until the end to see how a rejected bond turned into the greatest love story the realm has ever known. And don't forget to hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. The altar stone was cold beneath Sarah's Vale's knees. She could feel it through the thin fabric of her ceremonial dress, a pale gray thing that washed out her skin and made her look like a corpse already prepared for burial. That was the point, she supposed. Grey March didn't celebrate bastards. It tolerated them. Barely. The great hall of the Grey March Palace stretched out before her like the throat of some enormous beast. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadow. Banners hung limp from iron brackets, their colors muted in the flickering torchlight. Hundreds of faces stared down at her from tiered galleries, nobles in silk and fur, warriors in polished armor, merchants who'd paid good coin for a seat at this spectacle. They'd all come to watch her humiliation. Ceres kept her eyes forward, fixed on the man standing 3 steps above her on the raised platform. Alpha King Darius Vorn. His presence filled the space like a physical weight, broad-shouldered, severe, with slate-gray eyes that held all the warmth of a winter funeral. His hair was black, cut military short. A scar ran from his left temple to his jaw, pale against sun-darkened skin. He wore simple battle leathers rather than ceremonial robes, as if he couldn't be bothered to dress up for this, as if she wasn't worth the effort. Behind him stood the royal council, 5 gray-haired men who looked like vultures eyeing carrion. To his right, Captain Aldrich Thorne, the king's closest friend and head of the royal guard. Aldrich's face was carefully neutral, but Ceres caught the tightness around his mouth. Pity? Maybe. Or disgust. To Darius's left stood Lady Marin Frost, the king's former lover and current political headache. Beautiful, cold, draped in midnight blue silk that probably cost more than Ceres's entire bloodline had ever possessed. Marin's smile was a knife wrapped in velvet. And there, in the third gallery, Ceres's own family. Her father, Lord Corwin Vale, sat rigid in his seat, face carved from stone. He hadn't looked at her once since she'd entered the hall. Beside him, her half-brother Gregor lounged like a satisfied cat, one hand draped over the railing, the other holding a goblet of wine. Her stepmother, Lady Ismene, wore an expression of profound relief, as if a particularly unpleasant odor was finally being removed from her presence. The high priest droned on, reading from a scroll that detailed the sacred bond between alpha and mate, the divine connection that superseded law and logic, the enough. Darius's voice cut through the liturgy like an axe through kindling. The priest stuttered to a halt, scroll trembling in his hands. Silence crashed over the hall. Darius descended 1 step. Then another. His boots struck stone with deliberate weight. When he stopped, he was close enough that Ceres could smell leather and steel and something else, pine, maybe, or cold mountain air. "Ceres Vale," he said. His voice carried to every corner of the hall without him raising it. "Stand." She rose. Her legs shook, but she locked her knees and kept her chin up. She'd be damned if she'd give them the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. Darius's eyes swept over her, clinical, assessing, finding her lacking. "The bond," he said, "is a gift from the old blood. A connection between souls meant to strengthen the pack, the kingdom, the realm itself." He paused. The silence stretched. "You," he continued, "are the bastard daughter of a disgraced house. Your mother was a servant who seduced a married lord. Your bloodline is tainted. Your presence here is a formality required by ancient law, nothing more." Somewhere in the galleries, someone laughed. The sound rippled outward, growing. Ceres felt heat crawl up her neck, but she didn't look away from Darius's face. "The bond may have chosen you," Darius said, "but I do not." The words landed like stones in still water. In front of these witnesses, before the old laws and the new, I, Darius Vorn, Alpha King of Grey March and Sovereign of the Northern Territories, formally reject the bond between us. Ceres felt it then, the severing, like something vital being torn from her chest. The bond had been there since her 20th birthday, a golden thread she'd barely understood, connecting her to this cold-eyed man who wanted nothing to do with her. Now it frayed, unraveling, the pain white-hot and absolute. She gasped, couldn't help it. The pain should have driven her to her knees, should have broken her completely. The book said rejection was agony beyond imagining, that some didn't survive it, that the ones who did were never whole again. But Saris had lived her entire life with pain, her father's indifference, her stepmother's cruelty, Gregor's casual torments, the servants who spat in her food when they thought she wasn't looking, the nobles who whispered bastard and whore's daughter just loud enough for her to hear. 23 years of being unwanted, of being less than, of being a mistake that everyone wished would simply disappear. This was just one more rejection in a lifetime of them. The pain crested, the bond snapped, and Sarah smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It wasn't gentle or forgiving or gracious in defeat. It was the smile of someone who just realized she had nothing left to lose. "What's funny?" Darius's voice had an edge now. "You," Sarah said. Her voice came out rough, scraped raw. "All of you." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lord Corwin half rose from his seat, face darkening. Lady Marin's smile widened. "You think this is my nightmare?" Saris continued. She looked past Darius to the galleries, to the hundreds of people who'd come to watch her be discarded like garbage. Being rejected by a man who couldn't feel warmth if you set him on fire? Being freed from a bond that would have chained me to this frozen hellhole forever? "Saris?" the high priest started. "No." She cut him off, her attention snapping back to Darius. "You want me gone? You want me erased? Done. I accept your rejection, Darius Vorn. I accept it gladly." Something flickered in Darius's eyes, surprise maybe. "But you should know something," Saris said quietly, so quietly that only those nearest could hear. "That bond you just severed. It wasn't holding me to you." The first shadow appeared at her feet, small at first, just a ripple in the torchlight, like ink dropped in water. Then another, and another. It was holding something else in. The shadows exploded outward. Darkness erupted from Saris's body like a living thing, thick, viscous, impossible. It swallowed the altar, the platform, the nearest rows of seats. Screams erupted as nobles scrambled backward, tripping over each other in their panic. Warriors drew swords that suddenly seemed absurdly small. The shadows writhed and coiled, eating the light. Torches guttered and died. The great windows went black as if someone had painted over them. In seconds, the hall was plunged into a darkness so complete that Saris couldn't see her own hands. But she could feel it. The power thrumming through her veins, ancient and eager and hungry. It recognized her. It had always been there, dormant, waiting. The bond had kept it locked away, hidden beneath layers of weakness and humanity. Now it was free, and it wanted to play. No, Saris thought desperately. No, not like this. The darkness pulsed. Someone screamed, a wet, cut-off sound that made Saris's stomach turn. Enough! Darius's voice cracked through the chaos like thunder. Golden light blazed to life around him, the power of an alpha king made manifest. It pushed back against the darkness, carving out a circle of visibility. His eyes found hers across the writhing shadows. "Control it," he commanded. "Now!" Saris wanted to laugh. Control it? She didn't even understand it. The power bucked and twisted inside her like a wild horse, demanding release, demanding blood. A hand closed around her wrist. Captain Aldrich. He'd crossed the distance between them somehow, moving through the darkness like it wasn't even there. His grip was firm, but not painful. "Breathe," he said quietly. "Whatever this is, you're feeding it with fear. Breathe." Saris sucked in air. Her lungs burned. The darkness roared in her ears, 1,000 voices speaking words she almost understood. "Look at me," Aldrich commanded. "Not at them. Not at him. Me." She focused on his face, weathered, scarred, steady. No fear in his eyes, no judgment, just focus. "Pull it back," he said. Slowly, like reeling in a fishing line. "I don't know how it—" "Yes, you do. You've been controlling it your whole life. You just didn't know what you were controlling." That was insane. Saris had never controlled anything in her life. She was powerless, worthless, a bastard with no magic, no strength, nothing. Liar. The word echoed in her mind, her own voice, but deeper, older. "You know exactly what you are." Ceres closed her eyes, reached inward toward the place where the shadows originated. It felt like plunging her hands into freezing water, but she forced herself deeper. There, a core of darkness, dense and ancient, older than the stones of Grey March. Older than the kingdom itself. It wasn't evil, it wasn't good. It simply was pure power, waiting for someone strong enough to claim it. Ceres grabbed hold of it. The shadows screamed. They fought her, lashing out, trying to tear free. But Ceres had spent 23 years being torn apart. She knew how to hold on when everything in her wanted to let go. Mine, she thought fiercely. You're mine, not the other way around. The darkness shuddered, hesitated. Then slowly, it began to retreat. The shadows pulled back like a tide going out, flowing across the floor and up Ceres's legs, her torso, sinking back into her skin. The torches reignited with pops of flame. Light flooded the hall, harsh and revealing. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Not dead, unconscious, Ceres realized with relief so sharp it hurt. The darkness had knocked them out, overwhelmed them, but hadn't killed. This time. Silence. Absolute and terrible. Every eye in the hall fixed on Ceres. She stood alone on the altar platform, breathing hard, her dress torn and her hair wild. The shadows were gone, but she could still feel them beneath her skin, coiled and waiting. Darius stood 10 feet away, golden light still crackling around his clenched fists. His expression was unreadable. "What?" he said slowly. "Are you?" Ceres laughed. It came out broken. "I don't know. I don't—" She swayed. The world tilted. Aldrich caught her before she hit the ground. "My king," he said urgently. "Orders?" Darius stared at Ceres for a long moment. She saw him calculate, consider, decide. "Seize her," he said, "and summon the council. We have a problem." The cells beneath Grey March Palace were old, pre-kingdom old, carved from living stone by hands that had turned to dust millennia ago. They were designed to hold things that shouldn't exist: rogue wolves, corrupted mages, creatures too dangerous to kill, but too useful to release. Ceres sat on the stone bench bolted to the wall and tried to stop shaking. They hadn't hurt her. The guards who'd escorted her down here had been professional, almost gentle. They'd removed the ceremonial dress and given her simple gray clothing, rough wool that scratched but was warm. They'd left her a pitcher of water and a plate of bread and cheese. They'd also wrapped her wrists and ankles in iron cuffs inscribed with runes that made her skin crawl. Ceres could feel the darkness inside her, prowling, testing the boundaries of whatever magic the runes contained. It didn't like being caged, neither did she. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Ceres looked up as Darius appeared outside her cell. He was alone, no guards, no council members. He'd changed into clean leathers, washed the dust from his face, but his eyes were the same, cold, assessing. He studied her through the bars for a long moment. "The council wants you executed," he said finally, "publicly, before sunset tomorrow." Ceres's stomach dropped. She'd expected this, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. "Lord Grayson has already drafted the decree. Unlawful use of forbidden magic. Assault on the nobility. Threat to the crown." Darius's mouth twisted. "They're calling you a dark mage, an abomination. Are they wrong?" Ceres's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I don't know." Darius stepped closer to the bars. "Are they?" Ceres met his gaze. "I don't know what I am. I didn't know I could do that. I've never—" She stopped. That wasn't quite true. There had been moments over the years, shadows that moved wrong, lights that died when she walked past, small things she'd convinced herself she'd imagined. "You're not a mage," Darius said. It wasn't a question. "No." "But you have power, old power." He paused. "Shadow magic hasn't been seen in Grey March for 300 years, not since the Purge." Ceres knew the stories. Every child in the kingdom did. 3 centuries ago, shadow mages had nearly destroyed Grey March from within, corrupting the land itself. The alpha kings of that era had hunted them down, burned them out. The last shadow mage had died screaming on a pyre in the capital square. Or so the histories claimed. "If you execute me," Ceres said quietly, "you'll never know what I am, or why the Bond chose me." The bond chose wrong. Did it? Saris leaned forward. You felt it snap. You know what that should have done to me. But I'm still here, still breathing, still whole. Don't you wonder why? Darius's jaw tightened. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Saris said, that maybe the bond knew something you don't. Maybe it connected us for a reason. Maybe that darkness isn't the threat. Maybe it's the solution to something worse. That's insane. Is it? When was the last time an Alpha King felt a bond this strong to anyone? Decades? Longer? Saris stood, moving to the bars. The rune cuffs hummed against her wrists. You rejected me because I'm a bastard, because I'm weak, because I'm nothing, but you just saw what I can do. I saw you lose control and nearly kill half my court. I didn't, though. I pulled it back. Saris gripped the bars. I can learn. I can be useful. Unless you'd rather burn the only person in your kingdom who might actually have the power to… To what? Saris hesitated. She didn't know. But something in her gut said she was right, that this wasn't random, that the bond and the darkness were connected to something larger. To fight whatever's coming, she said finally. Darius stared at her. Nothing's coming. You're lying. Saris could see it in his eyes, the crack in his armor. Something's wrong in Greymarch. Something you're not telling your people. I can feel it. The darkness can feel it. Silence stretched between them. 3 weeks ago, Darius said slowly, a village on the northern border went silent. When we sent scouts, they found everyone dead, not killed, just empty. Husks, like something had drained them. Theris's blood went cold. 2 weeks ago, another village, then another. It's spreading south. We've lost 18 settlements, nearly 1,000 people. Darius's hands clenched on the bars. And we have no idea what's causing it. But you have suspicions. Old texts mention a blight, a corruption that spreads through the land, feeding on life itself. The symptoms match. He looked at her. The same texts say shadow magic is the only thing that can fight it. That darkness is the natural enemy of the blight. Understanding crashed over Saris. That's why the bond chose me. Maybe. Or maybe the bond is just as corrupted as everything else. Darius stepped back. The council convenes in the morning. They'll demand your execution. I can't stop them. But you can overrule them. At what cost? I'm barely holding this kingdom together as it is. If I'm seen protecting someone who wielded forbidden magic… If you execute me, Saris interrupted, and the blight keeps spreading, you'll have traded the only weapon that might work for political stability. How long before there's no kingdom left to rule? Darius's eyes narrowed. You have a counter-proposal. Marry me. The words hung in the air between them. Darius laughed, short, sharp, utterly without humor. You're insane. I'm practical. Saris kept her voice steady. A political marriage, no bond, no love, just strategy. You get access to my power. I get protection from execution. We learn what I am and how to use it against the blight. The nobility would revolt. Let them try. You're the Alpha King. Your word is law. Saris leaned closer. And if I'm your wife, your queen, they can't touch me. Not without committing treason. You'd be hated, despised. They'd call you every name imaginable. They already do. At least this way I'd have a crown. Darius studied her face like he was trying to read a map in a language he didn't speak. Why? He asked finally. Why would you want this? I rejected you, humiliated you in front of the entire court. Because, Saris said, you're offering me a choice. Everyone else just wants me dead or gone. You're actually considering letting me live. That makes you the best option I've got. That's a low bar. I'm a bastard, Your Majesty. I'm used to low bars. Something almost like respect flickered in Darius's eyes. If I agree to this, and I haven't, you would be queen in name only. No authority, no power. You'd be a tool. A weapon I point at the enemy. I've been a tool my whole life. At least this time I'd be a useful one. Darius was quiet for a long moment. Saris could practically hear him thinking, weighing, calculating. She held her breath. I'll consider it, he said finally. But first, you're going to answer some questions. Starting with, what else can you do? I don't know. Then we're going to find out. Darius gestured, and 2 guards appeared at the end of the corridor. Take her to the lower training yard, clear everyone out, and bring Aldrich. The guards unlocked her cell. Sarah stepped out, wrists still bound. Don't make me regret this, Darius said quietly. Saris met his eyes. Don't give me a reason to. Not. The training yard was deep below the palace, carved into bedrock. No windows, no natural light, just torches and stone and weapons racked along the walls. Aldrich was already there, along with an older woman Saris didn't recognize. She was small, weathered, with iron-gray hair pulled into a severe bun. Her eyes were sharp as broken glass. Saris Vale, the woman said. I'm Elena Crane, royal archivist and the closest thing this kingdom has to an expert on old magic. Lucky me, Saris muttered. Elena's mouth twitched. Indeed. Now tell me about your family history. Any unusual deaths, strange occurrences, relatives who disappeared? My mother died when I was born. My father pretends I don't exist. My half-brother once locked me in a root cellar for 3 days. Saris shrugged. Define unusual. Powers. Did anyone in your bloodline have powers? I'm a bastard. I don't know my mother's bloodline. Elena exchanged a look with Darius. That complicates things. Start with what we saw today, Darius said. The shadows. What were they? Physical manifestations of raw shadow magic, Elena said. Extremely rare, extremely dangerous. Most mages need years of training to achieve even basic shadow manipulation. You did it instinctively. I didn't mean to eat. That makes it worse. Elena circled Saris slowly. Instinctive magic is harder to control. It responds to emotion, not will. Fear, anger, pain, which means every time you lose your temper, you risk unleashing that again. Great, just great. Can she learn to control it? Aldrich asked. Maybe, if she survives the training. Elena stopped in front of Saris. Shadow magic is fed by darkness, literal and metaphorical. It grows stronger in the absence of light, hope, love. It consumes. That's its nature. To wield it without being consumed requires iron discipline and a willingness to face your own worst impulses. Sounds fun, Saris said flatly. It will be excruciating. Elena smiled. It wasn't comforting. But if you succeed, you'll be one of the most powerful individuals in the realm. So, shall we begin? Saris looked at Darius. He nodded once. Fine, Saris said. What do I do? First, we establish baseline. Elena gestured to the center of the yard. Stand there, close your eyes. Reach for the power inside you, but don't use it. Just find it. Tell me what you feel. Saris moved to the center of the room, closed her eyes, reached inward, past the fear and exhaustion, toward the dark core she'd touched earlier. There. It pulsed in her chest like a second heartbeat. Hungry, watchful, waiting. It's there, she said quietly. Describe it. It's cold, deep, like falling into a frozen lake. Saris shivered. But it's not hostile, it's just there, part of me. Good. Now push it. Just a little. Not to manifest anything, just to feel its edges. Saris pushed. The darkness surged. Shadows exploded across the training yard floor, swallowing the torchlight. Saris gasped, tried to pull them back, but they'd already spread too far. Stop! Elena's voice cracked like a whip. The shadows froze. Don't panic. Panic makes it worse. Breathe. Count to 5. Pull it back slowly. Saris forced herself to breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She visualized a door closing, a lid shutting, a box sealing. The shadows reluctantly retreated. Better, Elena said. But barely. Again. They repeated the exercise a dozen times. Each time, Saris lost control a little less. Each time, the shadows responded a little faster to her commands. But it was exhausting, like trying to hold back a river with her bare hands. By the end of the hour, Saris was shaking with effort. Sweat soaked her shirt. Her vision blurred. Enough, Darius said. She's done. She's barely started, Elena countered. If she's going to be useful, she needs to us. I said enough. Darius's tone left no room for argument. Saris, sit. Drink water. Aldrich, Take over. Aldrich handed Saris a water skin. She drank gratefully, her hands trembling. You did well, Aldrich said quietly. I nearly killed you all. Again. But you didn't. You learned. That's what matters. Darius and Elena were speaking in low voices across the room. Saris caught fragments. Accelerated timeline. Too dangerous. No choice. Finally, Darius turned back to her. Tomorrow morning, he said, I'm announcing our engagement to the council. Saris's heart stuttered. You're actually doing it? I'm doing what's necessary for the kingdom. Don't mistake that for anything else. His expression was granite. You'll be given quarters in the palace, a small staff, guards. Elena will continue your training in secret. In public, you'll act the part of the reluctant bride. No displays of power. No threats. You're weak, grateful, overwhelmed. Understood? I can manage weak and overwhelmed. Good. Because the moment the council suspects what you really are, they'll find a way to remove you. Marriage or no marriage. Darius stepped closer. And Saris? If you lose control again, if you hurt anyone under my protection, I will end you myself, crown or no crown. Saris believed him. Understood. Then we have an agreement. Darius turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The bond may be broken, but the connection between us isn't gone completely. I can still feel echoes. When you use the darkness, I feel it, and vice versa. That's not possible. You rejected the bond. I know, which means whatever linked us is deeper than the bond itself. His eyes met hers. I don't know what that means yet, but we're going to find out. He left. Aldrich followed, leaving Saris alone with Elena. The old woman regarded her thoughtfully. You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. Good. You'll need to be. Elena gathered her things. Get some rest. Tomorrow, your real education begins. Saris's new quarters were in the East Tower, far from the main royal wing, but not as far as the servants' cells. A deliberate middle ground. She had a bed, a desk, a wash basin, and a window that looked out over the training grounds. She also had 2 guards stationed outside her door, for her protection, supposedly. Saris lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Her body ached. Her mind raced. In less than a day, she'd gone from rejected bastard to the Alpha King's future queen, from powerless to dangerous, from unwanted to whatever she was now. The darkness stirred inside her, restless. What are you? She asked it silently. No answer. Just that cold, patient presence, waiting. Saris closed her eyes. Tomorrow the council would be told. Tomorrow the entire kingdom would know. Tomorrow her new life, whatever that meant, would begin. But tonight, in the dark, she was still just Saris. Still the bastard no one wanted. Still the girl who'd been cast aside. Still the girl who'd smiled when the world expected her to break. And that girl, Saris decided, wasn't going anywhere. The darkness seemed to approve. The council chamber smelled like old parchment and older grudges. Saris stood 3 steps behind Darius's throne, hands clasped in front of her, head bowed in what she hoped looked like respectful submission. The gray dress they'd given her this morning was better quality than yesterday's ceremonial rags, but still deliberately plain. No jewelry, no ornamentation, just fabric and the message it sent. She knows her place. The 5 council members sat in their high-backed chairs arranged in a semicircle facing the throne. Lord Grayson, the eldest, had a face like a dried apple, and eyes that missed nothing. Lady Morgana controlled the kingdom's finances and looked like she'd rather be counting coins than dealing with this mess. Commander Reese oversaw military strategy and clearly thought Darius had lost his mind. Scholar Petros, keeper of records and laws, kept adjusting his spectacles nervously. And Lord Harwin, voice of the merchant guilds, watched everything with the calculating gaze of a man always looking for an angle. Behind them, in the observers' gallery, sat 24 nobles who'd earned the right to witness council proceedings. Saris spotted her father in the 3rd row, face carved from ice. Gregor sat beside him, looking hungover and bored. Darius rose from his throne. The room fell silent. I've called this emergency session to address yesterday's events, he began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber, and to announce a decision regarding Saris Vale's status. Execute her, Lord Grayson said flatly. She wielded forbidden magic, attacked the nobility. The law is clear. The law, Darius replied, grants the Alpha King authority to pardon in matters of national security. Grayson's eyes narrowed. You're claiming this bastard shadow magic is a matter of national security? I'm claiming that the blight spreading through our northern territories requires every possible resource. Darius's gaze swept the council. Which you all know, because I briefed you 3 days ago on the 19th village we've lost. Silence. The nobles in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. This was clearly news to them. The blight, Darius continued, has resisted every conventional attempt to stop it. Magical wards fail. Military quarantines slow it, but don't halt it. We've lost nearly 1,200 citizens in 4 weeks. At this rate, it will reach the capital in 2 months. And you think this girl can stop it? Commander Reese's skepticism was audible. I think, Darius said carefully, that ancient texts suggest shadow magic is uniquely suited to combating corruption of this nature. And I think executing the only shadow mage we've seen in 300 years would be strategically foolish. Or, Lady Morgana said coldly, keeping her alive could doom us all. Shadow magic is forbidden for good reason. It corrupts, consumes. The purge happened because shadow mages destroyed half the kingdom from within. That was 3 centuries ago. The darkness doesn't age, Your Majesty. It waits. Morgana's fingers drummed on her armrest. One mistake, one loss of control, and she could do more damage than the blight ever will. Ceres kept her expression neutral, but her pulse hammered. This wasn't going well. Which is why, Darius said, I'm implementing strict controls. Ceres Vale will remain under constant supervision. Her training will be overseen by Elena Crane and myself personally. She will be confined to the palace grounds. And, he paused, let the silence build. She will be bound to me through marriage. The chamber exploded. Absolutely not. Have you lost your mind? The people will never accept. Darius let them shout for exactly 10 seconds, then raised one hand. The room went quiet. A political marriage, he clarified. Not a bonded union. The rejected bond remains severed. This is purely strategic. As my wife, she falls under royal protection and royal authority. Any attempt on her life becomes treason. Any command I give her becomes law. And what, Lord Grayson asked slowly, does she gain from this arrangement? Her life, Darius said simply, which, given the alternative, seems generous. Ceres nearly smiled. Generous. Right. The nobility will revolt, Scholar Petros said nervously. A bastard as queen? It violates every precedent. I'm the Alpha King. I set precedent. Darius's tone left no room for argument. The marriage will happen. The only question is whether you support it publicly or force me to overrule you. Lord Harwin leaned forward. And if she loses control again? If she kills someone? Then I execute her myself. Darius's voice was flat, matter of fact. No trial, no appeal, immediate death. That is the agreement we've made. All eyes turned to Ceres. She lifted her head, met their stares. I accept those terms. You accept death if you fail? Grayson's eyebrows rose. I accept that I'm more useful alive than dead, and that His Majesty's offer is the only one that doesn't end with me burning on a pyre. Ceres kept her voice steady. I didn't ask for this power. I don't want it. But if it can save lives, I'll learn to use it, under whatever conditions the king requires. A long silence. She's brave, Commander Reese said grudgingly. Or suicidal. Both probably, Ceres muttered. Reese's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Lord Grayson stood. I want it on record that I oppose this decision completely, but I acknowledge the king's authority in matters of national defense. He looked at Darius. When the nobility demands answers, they'll come to you, not me. Noted, Darius said. Anyone else? One by one, the council members voiced their reluctant agreement. Only Lady Morgana remained silent until the end. I hope you know what you're doing, she said quietly to Darius. Because if you're wrong, history will remember you as the king who unleashed the darkness on his own people. If I'm wrong, Darius replied, there won't be anyone left to remember. As the wedding was scheduled for 3 days later. 3 days wasn't nearly enough time to prepare for a royal wedding, but Darius wanted it done quickly, before opposition could organize. A small ceremony. Immediate family and council only. No grand celebration, no week-long festivities. Just vows, signatures, and a binding contract. Ceres spent those 3 days in a haze of activity that left her head spinning. Dress fittings with the seamstress who looked at her like she was measuring a corpse for burial clothes. Etiquette lessons with a pinch-faced instructor named Madame Corel, who corrected her posture every 30 seconds. Palace layout memorization. Title memorization. Rank memorization. Which fork to use at state dinners. How to curtsy to visiting dignitaries. How to address the council. How to walk, sit, stand, breathe like someone who belonged in these halls. "You're a disaster," Madame Corel said after the second lesson. "But I suppose we work with what we have." At night, Elena came for the real training. They worked in the lower yards, far from curious eyes. Elena pushed her relentlessly, summoning shadows, dispersing them, shaping them, controlling them, teaching Ceres to channel the darkness through will instead of emotion. It was brutal. Every session left Ceres exhausted and shaking, her control fraying at the edges. The darkness fought her constantly, testing her limits, looking for weaknesses. Once, she lost her grip completely, and shadows swallowed half the training yard before Elena knocked her unconscious with a sleeping draft. "You're improving," Elena said the next night, which Ceres suspected was the closest thing to praise the old woman offered. "I nearly killed you." "Nearly isn't the same as did. You pulled back. That's progress." Ceres flexed her hands. They were covered in small cuts from where she dug her nails into her palms, using pain to anchor herself when the darkness threatened to overwhelm. "How long before I can actually use this against the blight?" "Months. Maybe longer." Elena packed away her notes. "Shadow magic isn't like other powers. It doesn't follow rules, it follows instinct. And your instincts are still raw. I don't have months, the blight. We'll reach the capital whether you're ready or not. But sending you north untrained would just add you to the body count." Elena's expression softened slightly. "Patience, girl. I know it's hard, but rushing this will get you killed." Ceres wanted to argue, but she was too tired. She just nodded. On the second night, Darius joined them. He watched from the shadows while Ceres practiced, his presence a weight she felt even when she couldn't see him. When Elena finally called an end to the session, he stepped into the light. "How bad is it?" he asked Elena. "Better than I expected. Worse than I'd like." Elena glanced at Ceres. She has raw power in abundance. Control is the problem, and will always be the problem. Shadow magic feeds on darkness, literal and emotional. Every time she's angry, afraid, hurt, it gets stronger, which means she needs to maintain perfect emotional discipline while learning to channel something that wants her to lose control. "Sounds impossible," Darius said. "It nearly is." Elena gathered her things. "But she's stubborn. That helps." She left. Ceres and Darius stood in the empty training yard, silence stretching between them. "You're doing better than I thought you would," Darius said finally. "Low expectations work in my favor." "I'm serious. Elena doesn't give praise lightly. If she says you're improving, you are." Ceres studied his face, looking for mockery. Found none. "Why do you care?" "Because in 3 days, you're going to be my wife. If you fail, I fail. If you lose control and hurt someone, it reflects on my judgment. Your success is my success. Self-interest, not sentiment." "Right. Of course." Ceres didn't know why that stung. She'd known the terms going in. Darius watched her for a moment longer. "The bond may be broken, but I still feel echoes of you, especially when you use the darkness. It's unsettling." "What does it feel like?" "Cold. Vast. Like standing at the edge of an abyss." He paused. "But not malevolent. That's what surprises me. The darkness inside you isn't evil. It's just powerful." "Does that make it less dangerous?" "No, but it makes you less predictable." Darius turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing. At the wedding, you'll meet my mother." Ceres blinked. "I didn't know she was still alive." "She lives in the Western Tower, doesn't attend court, doesn't participate in politics, but she insisted on attending the ceremony." His jaw tightened. "She'll try to read you." Assess whether you're a threat. Be careful what you say to her. Is she dangerous? She's a former queen who's survived 3 coup attempts, 2 assassination plots, and 40 years of court politics. Yes, she's dangerous. Darius met her eyes. But she's also the only person in this palace who might actually be on your side. If she decides to be. The wedding took place in the small chapel attached to the palace, not the grand cathedral where royal ceremonies traditionally occurred. Another message. This wasn't a real marriage, just a legal formality. Cerys wore a simple white dress. No train, no veil, no ornamentation. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. No flowers, no music, no joy. Just her, Darius, the high priest, and 24 witnesses who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Her father stood in the front row, face unreadable. Gregor smirked. Her stepmother didn't even pretend to hide her disgust. The ceremony was mercifully brief. Vows exchanged in flat voices, rings placed on fingers, simple gold bands that felt heavier than they should, signatures on parchment that made it legal. By the authority vested in me, the high priest intoned, I pronounce you husband and wife in law and name. May your union serve the kingdom. No, you may kiss the bride. No applause. Just silence and the scratch of the priest's pen as he recorded the marriage in the official register. Darius took her hand, the first time he'd touched her voluntarily, and led her down the aisle. His grip was firm but impersonal, like holding a tool. The reception was equally grim. A small gathering in the state dining room. Cold food. Colder conversation. Nobles who smiled with their mouths and calculated with their eyes. Cerys stood beside Darius's throne, playing her part. Meek, grateful, overwhelmed. She spoke only when spoken to, kept her answers brief, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. Halfway through, an older woman approached. She moved with a cane but didn't lean on it, just carried it like a scepter. Her hair was pure white, swept up in an elaborate style that must have taken hours. Her dress was deep purple, cut in a style 2 decades out of fashion, but elegant nonetheless. Former Queen Alara Vorn. Darius's mother studied Cerys with eyes the same shade of gray as her son's. So, Alara said, you're the girl who smiled when my son rejected her. Cerys's throat went dry. Your Majesty. That's not an answer. Yes, I smiled. Why? Cerys glanced at Darius. He was watching them but not intervening. Because, Cerys said carefully, I realized I had nothing left to lose. And that's either the most dangerous position to be in or the most freeing. Depends on what you do with it. Alara's expression didn't change. Interesting answer. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. Cerys followed the former queen to a small balcony overlooking the gardens. The late afternoon sun painted everything gold. In the distance, she could see the northern mountains, dark and forbidding. I was a bastard too, Alara said abruptly. Did you know that? Cerys blinked. No. My mother was a kitchen maid. My father was the former king's brother. When I bonded to the crown prince, half the court wanted me dead. Alara's fingers tightened on her cane. They called me whore, gold digger, abomination, said I'd corrupted the bond through dark magic. How did you survive? I learned to be useful. I studied politics, warfare, economics, everything the nobility claimed women couldn't understand. I made myself indispensable. She looked at Cerys. But I also learned to be ruthless, to strike first, to show no weakness. Is that advice? It's a warning. The court will test you constantly. They'll look for any excuse to remove you, and unlike me, you don't have a bond to protect you, just a marriage contract and my son's goodwill, which is limited. Cerys met Alara's gaze. I know. Do you? Because I watched you during the ceremony. You're angry, scared, trying to hide it, but I can see it. That darkness inside you, it feeds on those emotions. One mistake, one moment of weakness, and you'll give them exactly what they want, proof that you're dangerous. I'm working on control. Control isn't enough. You need leverage, information, allies. Alara stepped closer. I can help you. Teach you how to navigate this world, but only if you're willing to learn. Why would you help me? Because I'm bored, and because watching you terrify these entitled fools might actually be entertaining. Alara's mouth curved slightly. Also, my son needs someone who challenges him. He's been surrounded by sycophants too long. You're rough, unpolished, and completely out of your depth, but you have spine. I respect that. Saris didn't know what to say. Think about it, Ilar said. My offer stands. Now we should return before they start gossiping about what we're plotting. They walked back into the reception together. Saris felt eyes tracking them, minds working, theories forming. Good. Let them wonder. The evening dragged on. More false smiles. More veiled threats disguised as congratulations. More calculations behind every word. Finally, mercifully, it ended. Darius dismissed everyone with a wave. The nobles filed out, still whispering. Saris's family left without saying goodbye, and then she was alone with her husband. That went better than I expected, Darius said. No one tried to kill you. Low bar. You're getting good at those. He loosened his collar. My mother spoke with you. She offered to help. Did she? Darius's tone was unreadable. Be careful with her. She doesn't do anything without 3 reasons, and she only tells you one of them. She said the same thing about you. Then we're even. Darius moved toward the door, then paused. Your quarters have been moved. You're in the Queen's wing now, connected to mine by a shared study, separate bedrooms. We'll maintain appearances, but you'll have privacy. Generous of you. Don't mistake logistics for kindness. His eyes met hers. This is a political arrangement. We'll be seen together in public. We'll present a united front. But in private, we're allies, not lovers. Clear? Crystal. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow, the real work begins. He left. Saris stood alone in the empty dining room wearing a wedding dress that felt like a costume, a crown she hadn't earned, and a title that meant nothing. Queen of Grey March. It should have felt like victory. It felt like walking into a cage and locking it from the inside. The Northern Blight reached the 20th village 4 days after the wedding. Saris learned about it when she woke to find Darius already gone and a note on her desk. Council meeting. Don't come. Stay in your quarters. She ignored the note. The council chamber was in chaos when she arrived. Maps spread across every surface. Markers indicating dead zones. Red pins multiplying like a disease. Need to evacuate the entire Northern Territory. We don't have the resources. If it reaches Blackstone, we lose our primary iron supply. Darius spotted her in the doorway. His expression darkened. I said stay in your quarters. You're discussing the Blight. I should be here. The council doesn't answer to you. No, but I might actually be able to help. Unlike them. Saris stepped into the room. Every head turned. The darkness responds to the Blight, doesn't it? That's what the old texts say. Shadow magic is drawn to corruption. That's not proven, Lord Grayson snapped. Then let me test it. Saris moved to the largest map. Send me north. Let me see the Blight firsthand. If the darkness reacts, we'll know there's a connection. If it doesn't, you can keep looking for conventional solutions. Absolutely not, Commander Reese said. You're untrained. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than losing the entire Northern Territory? Saris met Reese's eyes. You've lost 20 villages in 5 weeks. At that rate, you'll lose 50 more before winter. How many people is that? 5,000? 10? Silence. She's right, Lady Morgana said reluctantly. We're running out of options. We're running out of time, Saris corrected. The longer we wait, the stronger the Blight gets. If there's even a chance I can help, you have to take it. Darius's jaw worked. It's a suicide mission. The Blight kills everything it touches. Even if your darkness is drawn to it, that doesn't mean you can survive exposure. Then I die trying, but at least you'll have data. Saris kept her voice steady. This is what you married me for, isn't it? To be a weapon. Let me be useful. Not by throwing you at the enemy untrained. I'm not asking for your permission. I'm your wife, not your prisoner. Saris straightened. Send me north or I'll go myself. Either way, I'm done sitting here pretending I'm helpless. The council members exchanged glances. This was the moment. Saris could feel it. Either they'd accept her as an asset or dismiss her as a liability. Darius stared at her for a long moment. Fine, he said finally, but on my terms. Elena goes with you. Aldrich and a full military escort. You stay within established safe zones. You observe only. No direct engagement with the Blight. And if Elena says it's too dangerous, you retreat immediately. Agreed? Agreed. Good. You leave at dawn. Darius turned back to the maps. Commander, prepare the escort. Scholar Petros, pull every text we have on shadow magic and corruption. Lady Morgana, arrange supply lines in case we need to evacuate Blackstone. The council sprang into motion. Sarah stood frozen, her heart pounding. She'd just volunteered to face the thing that had killed over 1,000 people. Either she was brave or she was insane. Probably both. The journey north took 3 days. They traveled in a convoy, 20 soldiers, 2 supply wagons, Elena's traveling library of magical texts. Ceres rode in a covered wagon with Elena, studying maps and reports, while the older woman quizzed her relentlessly. What happens when shadow magic encounters living corruption? Theoretically, they attract, like opposite magnetic poles. And practically, no one knows. All the shadow mages who fought the Blight 3 centuries ago died doing it. Encouraging, Elena muttered. The landscape changed as they moved north. Green fields gave way to brown. Trees lost their leaves too early. The air tasted wrong, metallic and sharp. By the 3rd day, they reached the perimeter camps, military outposts set up to monitor the Blight's spread. The soldiers stationed there looked exhausted, hollow-eyed, stretched too thin. Captain Aldrich met them at the main camp. The Blight's edge is 2 miles north. We've established observation posts, but no one stays longer than an hour. The corruption, it does something to people. Makes them sick. Disoriented. I need to see it, Ceres said. Not until tomorrow. It's nearly dark. We go in daylight, with full preparations. Aldrich's tone left no room for argument. Get some rest. You'll need it. That night, Ceres barely slept. The darkness inside her was restless, prowling, pulling toward the north like a dog straining at its leash. She could feel something out there, something that recognized her. At dawn, they set out. The observation post was a hastily constructed wooden platform overlooking a valley. From there, Ceres got her first look at the Blight. It was worse than she'd imagined. The valley should have been green. Instead, it was gray, not the natural gray of stone, but a sick, oily color that seemed to absorb light. Nothing lived there. No grass, no trees, no insects. Just emptiness and a faint wrongness that made Ceres' skin crawl. And in the center of the valley, something moved. Not wind, not animals, just movement. Shapes that formed and dissolved. Shadows that weren't cast by anything. Patterns that hurt to look at. Don't stare too long, Elena warned. The Blight corrupts perception. If you look too long, you start seeing things that aren't there, or things that are there but shouldn't be. Ceres tore her gaze away. Her head spun, but the darkness inside her surged, eager, hungry. It wants to go closer, she realized. It wants to touch the Blight. I need to get nearer, she said. No. Aldrich's hand moved to his sword. We observe from here. The darkness is reacting. I can feel it, but I need proximity to understand how. Ceres turned to Elena. Isn't that why we came? To see if there's a connection? Elena studied her face. How strong is the pull? Strong. It's like the Blight is calling to it, or vice versa. That's consistent with the old texts. Elena looked at Aldrich. Let her approach the edge. 20 yards, no closer. I'll monitor her for signs of corruption. Aldrich's jaw tightened. If she loses control, then you knock her unconscious and we retreat, but we need to know. Elena's voice was firm. This might be our only chance to understand the connection before the Blight reaches populated areas. Aldrich swore under his breath. 20 yards. I'm timing it. 5 minutes, then we're done. They descended into the valley. Every step made Ceres' skin prickle. The air here was thick, wrong, like breathing through wet cloth. The ground beneath her feet was spongy, yielding in ways earth shouldn't. The darkness inside her strained against her control, desperate to be released. Not yet, she told it. Not until I understand what you want. 15 yards from the Blight's edge. The wrongness intensified. Ceres' vision blurred. 10 yards. She could see the corruption clearly now. Tendrils of gray matter that pulsed like veins spreading through the ground like roots. 5 yards. The darkness inside her screamed. That's close enough, Aldrich said sharply. Saris stopped, closed her eyes, reached for the power inside her. It surged forward eagerly, flooding through her veins, spilling out through her skin. Shadows erupted around her feet, spreading across the ground. And where they touched the blight, something happened. The gray corruption recoiled, retreated, like two opposing forces repelling each other. It's working, Elena breathed. The shadow magic is pushing it back. Saris opened her eyes. The shadows at her feet were actively fighting the blight, creating a clean circle around her. Wherever darkness touched corruption, the corruption dissolved. I can hurt it, she whispered. The darkness can actually hurt it. Can you control it? Aldrich demanded. Can you weaponize it? Saris tried to push the shadows farther, to extend her reach. The darkness exploded. Shadows erupted in all directions, no longer under her control. They swallowed the valley, the observation posts, the sky. Saris felt herself falling into the void, pulled down by the power she'd unleashed. Elena's voice cut through the chaos. Saris, anchor yourself! Saris grabbed for the technique Elena had taught her. Visualization, focus, will. She imagined a door, a lock, a box. Forced the darkness back into its cage. The shadows retreated slowly, reluctantly. When her vision cleared, she was on her knees, gasping. Time to go, Aldrich said grimly. Now! They retreated. By the time they reached the camp, Saris was shaking so badly she could barely walk, but she was smiling. I can fight it, she said to Elena. I lost control, but before that, I was winning. The darkness drove the blight back. You also nearly killed us all, Elena said. Again. But I didn't. I'm getting better. You're getting more dangerous. Elena helped her into a chair. The power responds to proximity. The closer you are to the blight, the stronger your darkness becomes, which means using you against it is going to be exponentially harder than simple training. But possible. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Maybe. If we can teach you to maintain control even when the darkness is at full strength, that's a very big if. How long? Weeks at minimum. More likely months. We don't have months, Aldrich said. The blight just consumed another village this morning. We got word via courier an hour ago. Saris looked at him. Then we work faster. That night, lying in her tent, Saris felt the darkness prowling inside her like a caged wolf. It had tasted the blight, tasted victory. Now it wanted more. And the terrifying part was, so did she. The darkness wanted more, and every day Saris gave it a little. They stayed in the northern camps for 2 weeks. Every morning, she descended into the blighted valley with Elena and Aldrich. Every morning, she pushed herself closer to the corruption's edge, let the shadows loose for 30 seconds longer, drove the blight back another 5 feet before her control shattered and they had to drag her away. Progress measured in inches, paid for in blood. Her nose bled after every session now, and sometimes her ears. The darkness was eating her from the inside, Elena said, using her body as fuel. If she didn't learn to channel it properly instead of just containing it, it would burn her out completely. How long do I have? Saris asked one night, pressing a cloth to her bleeding nose. Elena didn't sugarcoat it. At this rate, 6 months, maybe less. 6 months to master a power that had taken shadow mages decades to control. 6 months before the darkness consumed her completely. 6 months to save a kingdom that still wanted her dead. On the 15th day, a courier arrived from the capital. Darius was coming north. He'd be there by nightfall. Saris's stomach dropped. She hadn't seen him since she'd left. They'd exchanged exactly 3 letters, brief, formal updates about the blight's spread and her training progress. Nothing personal, nothing warm. She told herself she didn't care. This was a political arrangement. He was her king, not her husband. Not really. But when his convoy rolled into camp that evening, her heart hammered traitorously in her chest. Darius dismounted with the fluid grace of someone who'd spent half his life on horseback. He wore traveling leathers, practical and road-worn, dust in his hair, shadows under his eyes. He looked exhausted. Their gazes met across the camp. Saris felt that strange echo again, the phantom sensation of a broken bond trying to reconnect. It made her skin prickle. Darius crossed the distance between them in long strides. "You look terrible." "Nice to see you too," Saris said. Elena says you're pushing too hard, bleeding after every session, collapsing twice in the last week. Elena has a big mouth. Elena is keeping you alive. Darius's jaw tightened. I came to see the results myself, and to decide if we're wasting time. That stung more than it should have. I'm driving the blight back. Slowly, but it's working. Show me. Tomorrow at dawn. He turned and walked toward the command tent without another word. Aldrich appeared at Saris's shoulder. He's worried about you. He won't admit it, but he is. He's worried about his investment. Big difference. Keep telling yourself that, Aldrich said mildly. That night, Saris couldn't sleep. She lay in her tent listening to the camp sounds. Soldiers talking, fires crackling, horses shifting in their picket lines, and underneath it all, the pull of the blight. Constant, insistent, like a hook buried in her chest, drawing her north. The darkness stirred inside her, responding to that call. What are you? She asked it for the 100th time. What do you want? Still no answer, just that cold, patient presence, waiting. Before dawn, she gave up on sleep and went to prepare. Elena was already in the preparation tent, laying out supplies, binding runes, dampening crystals, emergency sedatives. She looked up when Saris entered. Nervous? Terrified, Saris admitted. Good. Fear will keep you sharp. Elena handed her a small vial. Drink this before we start. It'll help stabilize your core temperature. The darkness burns cold when you channel it hard. This will keep you from hypothermia. Saris drank. It tasted like metal and mint and made her teeth hurt. Darius arrived as the sun broke the horizon. He brought half his guard, 20 men in full armor, shields and spears at ready, prepared for war, or prepared to kill her if she lost control. Whenever you're ready, he said. They descended into the valley. The blight had spread since yesterday. It now claimed another 100 yards of territory, the gray corruption creeping like spilled ink across the landscape. Where it touched, everything died. Grass turned to ash. Stones crumbled. Even the air felt thinner. Saris felt the darkness inside her surge in response. Eager, hungry. Not yet, she told it. Wait, they stopped at the designated safe point, 30 yards from the blight's edge. Closer than Saris had ever been allowed before. This is insane, one of the soldiers muttered. Quiet, Aldrich snapped. Saris closed her eyes, reached for the darkness. It came eagerly, flooding through her veins like ice water. She felt it pool in her hands, her chest, behind her eyes. Steady, Elena said quietly. Don't rush it. Saris opened her eyes. Shadows leaked from her fingers like smoke, and then she released it. The darkness exploded outward in a wave. It hit the blight's edge, and the two forces collided with an audible crack, like ice breaking or lightning striking stone. The corruption recoiled. Saris pushed harder. The shadows drove forward, eating into the blighted territory, creating a clean semicircle of untouched ground. 5 feet. 10. 15. Behind her, someone gasped. She's doing it, Darius said, voice tight. She's actually pushing it back. Saris gritted her teeth. The darkness fought her for control, wanting to spread farther, consume more. But she held it in check, kept it focused, shaped it into a weapon instead of a wildfire. 20 feet, 25. Her nose began to bleed. That's enough, Elena said sharply. Pull it back. Saris tried. The darkness didn't want to come. Mine, it whispered. All of this is mine. Saris, Darius's voice cut through the haze. Stop, now. She couldn't. The power had her, not the other way around. It poured through her in an endless flood, unstoppable, and the blight was right there, so much of it, she could cleanse it all if she just pushed a little harder. Pain exploded through her skull. Elena had struck her with something, a dampening rod, magic crackling along its length. The shock broke Saris's concentration. The shadows snapped back like a released bowstring, slamming into her body hard enough to knock her to her knees. She tasted blood, felt hands catching her before she hit the ground. Get her back to camp, Elena ordered. Now. Saris's vision swam. She was dimly aware of being carried, of voices arguing above her, of the cold ground beneath her back. Then, nothing. She woke in her tent. Afternoon light filtered through the canvas. Her head felt like someone had split it open with an axe. Darius sat in a camp chair beside her cot. Saris blinked at him. How long was I out? 4 hours. His expression was unreadable. Elena says you overtaxed your core. You could have killed yourself. But I didn't. This time, Darius leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That display this morning, it was impressive, terrifying, but impressive. You drove the blight back 30 feet, more than anyone's managed before. Then it's working. It's destroying you. I saw the medical reports, the bleeding, the seizures, the cellular degradation. His voice was hard. You're burning yourself out to fight something we don't even fully understand. What choice do I have? Sarah sat up too fast. The world spun. The blight is killing thousands. If I can stop it, you'll die in the attempt. And then we'll have nothing. Darius stood, started pacing. I won't authorize further field work. It's too dangerous. You don't get to make that call. I'm the Alpha King. That's exactly the call I get to make. I'm your wife, not your soldier. Sarah swung her legs over the side of the cot. You married me to use my power against the blight. Now you want to bench me because it's hard? Because it's risky? I want to keep you alive long enough to actually be useful instead of watching you martyr yourself for a kingdom that hates you. The words hit harder than they should have. Why do you care? Saris demanded. This is a political marriage. I'm a weapon, a tool. You said so yourself. Darius stopped pacing, looked at her, really looked at her. I don't know, he said quietly, but I do. The admission hung between them, fragile, dangerous. Saris's breath caught. Darius, a soldier burst into the tent. Your Majesty, emergency. The blight just accelerated. It's moving faster than we've ever seen. They scrambled outside. The entire camp was in motion. Soldiers arming, scouts returning, officers shouting orders. Aldrich met them at the command tent. It started an hour ago. The blight is advancing at 10 times its normal speed. It's already swallowed 2 observation posts. At this rate, it'll reach the camp by nightfall. Evacuate, Darius ordered immediately. Everyone, fall back to Blackstone. We'll never make it in time, Elena said grimly. Not with the supply wagons. We need 6 hours minimum. We have maybe 3. Silence. Terrible understanding spreading through the group. Saris felt the darkness inside her stir, responding to the approaching corruption like a hunting dog catching a scent. I can slow it down, she heard herself say. Everyone turned to look at her. No, Darius said flatly. I can create a barrier, shadow magic against the blight, hold it back long enough for the evacuation. Saris met his eyes. It's the only option. It'll kill you. You barely survived 30 feet this morning. You're talking about holding back a miles-wide front. I'm talking about saving 300 lives. Saris's voice steadied. Including yours. This is what you married me for. Let me do it. Find another way. There isn't one. Saris grabbed his arm. You know there isn't. Either I try this or everyone here dies. Those are the choices. Darius stared at her. She saw the calculation in his eyes, the cold logic of command warring with something else, something that looked almost like fear. If you do this, he said slowly, you'll likely die. Probably. And if you lose control, you could kill everyone yourself. The darkness could go wild. I know the risks. Then why? His voice cracked slightly. Why would you sacrifice yourself for people who've spent your entire life treating you like garbage? Because, Saris said, someone has to. And I'm the only one who can. She saw the moment he accepted it, saw the weight settle onto his shoulders. How long do you need to prepare? He asked Elena. 10 minutes, maybe less. Elena was already moving, gathering supplies. But Darius, you should know, the chances of her surviving this are almost 0. I understand. Darius looked at Saris. Do it. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Elena drew a ritual circle in the dirt, binding runes meant to anchor Saris's consciousness while she channeled, dampening crystals at cardinal points to prevent total loss of control, fail-safes that probably wouldn't work but might buy seconds. Aldrich organized the evacuation, wagons rolling, soldiers mounted. Civilians herded toward the southern road, and Sarah stood in the center of the circle, trying not to think about the fact that she was probably about to die. Darius appeared at her side. He carried something, a small dagger with a black blade. "Shadow iron," he said, "from the old armory. If you lose control completely, if the darkness takes you—" He pressed the dagger into her hand. "Use this. It's one of the few things that can kill a shadow mage." Saris looked at the blade, then at him. "You want me to stab myself if things go wrong? I want you to have a choice. Better a quick death than being consumed slowly." His jaw tightened. "I've seen what happens when shadow magic takes complete control. I won't let that happen to you." "Thoughtful," Sarah said dryly. But she tucked the dagger into her belt. Darius hesitated. Then, moving like it cost him something, he reached up and touched her face. His palm was warm against her cheek. "Don't die," he said quietly. "I'll try not to." "Sarius," he stopped, struggled with words. "When this is over, if you survive, we need to talk." "About what?" "About the fact that I'm an idiot." He stepped back before she could respond. "Elena, is she ready?" "As ready as she'll ever be." Elena looked at Sarius. "Remember everything I taught you. Channel through will, not emotion. The moment you feel yourself slipping, pull back. And if I can't pull back?" Elena's expression was grim. "Then use the dagger, fast." Encouraging. The evacuation began, wagons rolling south, soldiers forming a protective rear guard, 300 people moving as fast as they could, and Sarah stood facing north, where the blight was coming like a gray tsunami. She could see it now, a wall of corruption rolling across the valley, swallowing everything in its path, trees, stones, light itself. The darkness inside her screamed in recognition. "Now," it demanded. "Now!" Saris took a breath, let it out slowly. Then she opened the cage. The darkness erupted from her body in a torrent. It spread across the ground in all directions, creating a barrier between the camp and the approaching blight. Shadows rose like a wall, 20 feet high, dense as stone, crackling with power. The blight hit the shadow barrier and stopped. For a moment, everything balanced, light and dark, corruption and power, two impossible forces locked in stalemate. Then the blight pushed. The pressure was immense. Saris felt it like a physical weight crushing her chest. The corruption wanted through, wanted to consume, and it was so much stronger than she'd anticipated. The shadow barrier buckled. "No," Saris thought desperately. "Hold, just hold." She poured more power into the barrier. The darkness obeyed, reinforcing, thickening, but every second burned. She could feel her body breaking down, cells dying, blood vessels rupturing, bones grinding against each other. Behind her she heard shouts. The evacuation, still ongoing. "How long?" she wanted to scream. "How much longer?" The blight pushed harder. The barrier cracked. Saris tasted blood, felt something warm running from her ears. Her vision blurred. Just a little longer. Just... The barrier shattered. Not completely, but enough. Cracks appeared in the shadow wall. The blight began seeping through, spreading toward the fleeing evacuation. Saris screamed, drew on reserves she didn't have. The darkness responded with a fury that terrified her. It wanted the blight, wanted to fight it, consume it, destroy it completely. But that would mean letting go of all control. "Do it," something whispered, not the darkness. Her own voice, desperate. "Let go. Save them." "If you let go, you'll lose yourself," another part argued. "You'll become the monster they always said you were." The blight was getting closer. She could see people in its path now. Soldiers scrambling, civilians screaming. Saris made her choice. She let go. The darkness exploded. It blew past the barrier, past the careful control, past every limit Elena had taught her. It became a living thing, vast, ancient, hungry. It swallowed the blight whole, drove it back with a violence that shook the ground. And Saris felt herself disappearing into it, her consciousness fragmenting, identity dissolving, everything that made her burning away in the face of infinite darkness. "This is it," she thought distantly. "This is how I die." Then something grabbed her. Not physically, something deeper. A connection she thought had been severed. The bond. It was impossible. Darius had rejected her. The bond had snapped. But somehow, impossibly, it was there. A golden thread in the darkness, pulling her back. And through that thread she felt him. Darius, his fear, his determination, his absolute refusal to let her go. Come back, his voice echoed in her mind. Not spoken aloud, transmitted through the phantom bond. Saris, come back, I need you to come back. She grabbed onto that thread, used it as an anchor, pulled herself back toward consciousness, toward identity, toward herself. The darkness fought her. It wanted freedom, wanted to spread, wanted everything. But Saris wanted to live, and apparently so did Darius. She clawed her way back inch by inch, reclaimed her name, her memories, her pain, everything that made her human instead of just power. The darkness screamed in fury. Then, slowly, reluctantly, it began to retreat. Saris became aware of her body again. Lying on the ground, every nerve ending on fire, blood in her mouth, her vision red, but alive. Someone was holding her, Darius. He'd crossed back through the chaos, through the residual darkness, and he was holding her like she might shatter. You idiot, he said roughly. You complete idiot. Worked, didn't it? Saris's voice came out as barely a whisper. You almost died. You almost... He stopped. His arms tightened around her. Don't ever do that again. Can't promise that. Around them, the blight had retreated, driven back by the darkness's assault. The evacuation was complete. She could see the last wagons disappearing over the southern ridge. Everyone was safe. Saris tried to smile. Failed. The world was going dark again. Stay with me, Darius commanded. That's an order. Since when do I follow orders? Since now. His voice cracked. Please. The please broke something in her chest. Or maybe fixed it. She couldn't tell anymore. Elena appeared, face white. Get her to the medical tent. Now! They moved her. Saris was aware of motion, voices, hands checking her pulse. Elena shouting orders. The sharp smell of healing herbs. And through it all Darius stayed, holding her hand, refusing to let go. Saris woke in darkness. For a terrifying moment she thought she was back in the void, lost in the darkness, consciousness dissolved. Then she heard breathing, felt fabric beneath her fingers, smelled medicine and smoke. The medical tent. She was in the medical tent. She tried to sit up, pain lanced through her entire body. Don't move. Darius's voice, rough with exhaustion. She turned her head. He sat in a chair beside her cot, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Probably hadn't. How long? She rasped. 2 days. Elena said you burned out 90% of your cellular energy. You should be dead. His eyes met hers. Why aren't you dead? Stubborn? No, something else. Darius leaned forward. When you were lost in the darkness, I felt the bond. It was there, Saris, broken, but there, and I used it to pull you back. That's impossible. You rejected... I know what I did, and I was wrong. The words came out like they hurt. The bond chose us for a reason, and I was too proud, too stupid, too convinced that fate was wrong to see it. Saris's heart hammered. What are you saying? I'm saying that watching you nearly die made me realize something. Darius took her hand. His grip was warm, solid, real. I care about you, not because you're useful, not because you're a weapon, but because you're you, brave and reckless and absolutely maddening, and somewhere between the rejection and now, I fell in love with you. The world stopped. You? What? I love you. He said it simply, factually. I probably started falling the moment you smiled when I rejected you, but I was too blind to see it. Saris stared at him. You're serious. Completely. You love me, the bastard, the shadow mage, the girl everyone wants dead. Yes. Why? Because you're the only person in this kingdom who challenges me, who doesn't just obey, who looks at impossible odds and smiles. Darius's thumb brushed across her knuckles. Because you are willing to die for people who've never shown you kindness. Because you're stronger than you know and braver than you should be. Because... Saris kissed him. It wasn't graceful. She was injured, exhausted, probably still bleeding internally. But she grabbed his collar and pulled him down and kissed him hard enough to make her cracked lips hurt. He froze for half a second, then kissed her back with an intensity that stole what little breath she had left. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "I love you too," Saris said. "In case that wasn't clear." Darius laughed. A real laugh, rough and surprised. "When did that happen?" "I don't know. Somewhere between you threatening to execute me and holding me while I almost died." She touched his face. "We're idiots." "Completely." He kissed her again, softer this time. "But we're idiots together." The moment shattered when Darius suddenly went rigid. His entire body locked up. His eyes went wide, pupils dilating until his irises were just thin rings of gray. "Darius?" Saris grabbed his shoulders. "What's wrong?" He didn't respond. Couldn't. His skin was turning pale. No, not pale. Gray. Like ice spreading across water. "Elena!" Saris screamed. The old woman burst through the tent flap, took one look at Darius, and swore viciously. "The curse," she breathed. "It's triggered." "What curse?" Saris demanded. "The Vorn bloodline curse. It activates when an Alpha King falls in love with someone outside an approved bond." Elena grabbed supplies, started mixing compounds with shaking hands. "Every king in his line for the last 3 centuries has died from it. We hoped he'd be different. How do we stop it? We can't. No one's ever survived it. The curse freezes them from the inside out, stops the heart, kills in minutes." Darius's lips were turning blue, his breathing shallow. Saris felt the darkness inside her surge. Not eagerly this time, desperately. "The shadow magic," she said. "Could it break a curse?" "In theory, but you'd have to—" Elena stopped. Understanding dawned. "No, absolutely not. You're in no condition to channel. It would kill you." "Doing nothing will kill him." Saris was already moving, ignoring the screaming protest of her body. She grabbed Darius, pulled him onto the cot beside her. "Tell me how." "Saris, you can't." "Tell me how!" Elena's hands clenched. Then she started talking fast. "Curses are magical constructs. They have structure, pattern. Shadow magic is chaos. It can dismantle structure if applied precisely. You'd need to channel it directly into his bloodstream, find the curse's anchor point, and unravel it without destroying his life force in the process." "How do I find the anchor point?" "You feel for wrongness, like finding a knot in thread." Elena pressed vials into Saris's hands. "Drink these. They'll stabilize you long enough to try. But Saris, the chances of success are almost 0, and if you fail, you'll both die. If I don't try, he dies anyway." Saris uncorked the first vial, drank. It burned all the way down. "Better odds than nothing." She turned to Darius. His eyes were still conscious, still aware, looking at her with an expression that broke her heart. "Don't," he seemed to be saying. "Save yourself." "Not happening," Saris said aloud. "You don't get to confess your love and then die on me. That's cheating." She placed her hands on his chest, closed her eyes. Reached for the darkness one more time. It came reluctantly. She'd burned so much. There was barely anything left. But what remained responded to her desperation. Saris pushed it into Darius's body. She felt his veins, his organs, his heartbeat slowing. And there, wrapped around his heart like barbed wire, the curse. It was old, vicious, designed to activate the moment love bypassed the rules. The moment an Alpha King chose freely instead of accepting fate's choice. Saris touched it with her power. The curse fought back immediately. It tightened around Darius's heart, squeezed, his back arched. A strangled sound escaped his throat. "Hold on," Saris whispered. "Just hold on." She wrapped the darkness around the curse, began to pull, unraveling it strand by strand, thread by thread. It resisted violently, trying to root deeper, trying to finish what it started. But the darkness was patient, methodical. It found every connection, every anchor, and severed them one by one. Saris felt her consciousness slipping again, felt her body shutting down from the strain. "Just a little more," she begged. "Please." The final strand snapped. The curse shattered. Saris felt it dissolve, felt warmth flood back into Darius's body as his heart resumed its normal rhythm. She also felt herself falling. Not into darkness this time, just falling, away from consciousness, away from life. The last thing she heard was Darius screaming her name. Then, nothing at all. Saris woke to voices arguing, Miracle she's alive at all. 3 days unconscious. Her vitals are barely there. I don't care what the readings say. She saved his life. She broke a 300-year-old curse. That counts for something. The words filtered through layers of fog. Saris tried to open her eyes. Her eyelids felt like they weighed 100 pounds each. Finally, she managed it. White canvas overhead. The medical tent again. Morning light filtering through, painting everything gold. Elena sat at a small desk, surrounded by papers and vials. Darius stood near the entrance, arms crossed, looking like he'd aged 10 years. Aldrich was there too, and several people Saris didn't recognize, healers probably, based on the symbols stitched into their robes. "She's awake," one of the healers said sharply. Everyone turned. Darius crossed the space in 3 strides. His hand found hers, gripped tight. "You're awake." "Apparently." Saris's voice came out as gravel. "How long?" 3 days. You've been—" He stopped, jaw working. "We thought we'd lost you." "Hard to kill," Saris managed. "Remember?" "That's not funny." "Little bit funny." Darius made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He pressed his forehead to hers, eyes closed. "Don't ever do that to me again." "Which part? Saving your life or almost dying?" "Both, either. Any of it." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "You broke the curse." Elena confirmed it. The bloodline curse that's killed every Vorn king for 3 centuries. You shattered it like it was nothing. "Didn't feel like nothing," Saris said. "Felt like dying." "You nearly did." Elena appeared beside the cot, checking Saris's pulse with professional efficiency. "Your core energy was depleted to critical levels. You should be dead. Instead, you're recovering faster than medically possible." "The darkness?" "Probably. It seems to be regenerating your cells from within, which is both fascinating and terrifying." Elena's fingers moved to Saris's eyes, checking pupil response. "You're going to be weak for days. Maybe weeks. No channeling, no training, strict bed rest. The blight is still spreading, but slower now. You bought us time when you drove it back." Elena stepped away, made notes on her chart. Time we desperately needed. The evacuation saved 300 lives. The northern settlements are emptying. Everyone's falling back to Blackstone. Saris absorbed that. 300 lives. Because she'd held the line. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt exhausting. "I need to speak with her," a new voice said. "Alone." Saris looked toward the entrance. Former Queen Alara stood there, leaning on her cane, expression unreadable. Darius tensed. "Mother, out. All of you." Alara's tone left no room for argument. "I won't harm her. I just want to talk." Darius looked at Saris. She nodded slightly. "It's fine." He didn't like it, but he went. Elena followed, herding the healers out. The tent flap closed. Alara moved closer, settled into the chair beside the cot. For a long moment, she just studied Saris. "You love my son," she said finally. Not a question. A statement. Saris saw no point in denying it. "Yes. And he loves you. Enough to trigger the curse, enough to nearly die for it." Alara's fingers tapped her cane. "Do you know how long I've waited for that?" Saris blinked. "What?" "The curse has ruled our family for 300 years. Every king, every generation. It forced them to accept bonds they didn't want, marry for politics instead of love, live half-lives pretending not to care." Alara's eyes glittered. It made them cold, distant, afraid to feel anything real. "I don't understand." "My husband, Darius's father, triggered the curse when he fell in love with me. A bastard from the kitchens. Not his bonded mate, not approved by the council." Alara's voice went soft. "I watched him die in my arms, frozen from the inside out. Nothing I could do to save him." Saris's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. He died loving me. That was his choice." Alara leaned forward. "But it meant Darius grew up terrified of the same fate. Terrified of feeling anything for anyone. He rejected you not just because you're a bastard. He rejected you because he was afraid that if he didn't, the curse would kill him." "And then it triggered anyway," Saris said quietly, "because he fell in love despite the rejection." Exactly. The curse doesn't care about bonds. It cares about love. Real love. The kind that makes you vulnerable. Alara smiled slightly. And you broke it. You did what no one in 3 centuries has managed. You fought death itself and won. Barely. But you did. Which means you're more powerful than anyone realized, including yourself. Alara's expression turned serious. The question is, what will you do with that power? Theris didn't have an answer. The nobility is already talking, Alara continued. Some are calling you a hero. Others are calling you a threat. Breaking the curse proved you can do the impossible. That terrifies them. I don't want to terrify anyone. I just want to stop the blight. The blight is connected to something larger. You know that, don't you? It's not random. It's being directed. Theris went still. What do you mean? The pattern is too precise, too calculated. Someone is controlling it, using it. Alara's voice dropped. And I think I know who. Before Theris could ask, the tent flap burst open. A soldier stumbled in, face white. Your Majesty! He spotted Theris, froze. I need the king. Immediately. Darius entered, Aldrich right behind him. What is it? Message from Blackstone. The blight just accelerated again. It's moving 3 times faster than before, and it's heading straight for the city. The room went cold. How long? Darius demanded. 4 days. Maybe 5 if we're lucky. That's impossible, Elena said. The blight doesn't move that fast. It does now. The soldier's hands shook. And there's more. The scouts found something at the leading edge. A figure. Someone standing as the corruption directing it. Theris's stomach dropped. Alara's voice cut through the shocked silence. I told you, someone is controlling it. Who? Darius's voice was hard. Who would have that kind of power? Someone who wants to destroy Grey March from within. Someone who's been waiting for the right moment. Alara looked at Theris. Someone from your bloodline. Theris's blood went cold. That's impossible. I don't have any... She stopped. My father, Lord Corwin Vale. Alara nodded slowly. Elena pulled the genealogy records, Vale family line. Go back 6 generations. Elena was already moving. She returned minutes later with a thick leather-bound book, flipped through pages, stopped. Here. Lord Corwin's great-great-grandmother, Mira Vale. Elena's finger traced the text. Married into the Vale line from... Oh no. What? Theris demanded. She was originally Mira Shadowborn, one of the last Shadow Mage families before the Purge. Elena looked up, face pale. They were supposed to have been wiped out completely, but if one survived, the power could have passed down through the bloodline, Alara finished, dormant for generations, waiting for the right catalyst to activate. Theris, Darius said slowly, when did your powers first manifest? The rejection, when you broke the bond. But they were there before. You said so yourself. Small things. Shadows moving wrong. Lights dying. Darius's mind was working fast. What if the bond wasn't containing the darkness inside you? What if it was suppressing the connection between you and someone else who had the same power? Understanding crashed over Ceres like ice water. You think my father has shadow magic, and somehow our powers are linked. I think, Alara said, that your father has been planning this for a very long time, that he deliberately positioned you to bond with the Alpha King, that he knew the rejection would trigger your powers, and that he's been using your bloodline connection to amplify his own abilities. Why? Theris's voice shook. Why would he want to destroy the kingdom? Revenge, power, madness, take your pick. Alara's expression was grim. Shadow mages consumed by their own darkness rarely need logical reasons. We need to confirm this, Darius said, before we accuse a sitting lord of treason. I can confirm it. Theris struggled to sit up. The darkness inside me, when I use it, I sometimes feel something else. Something watching. I thought it was just the power, but what if it's him? What if he's been watching through me this whole time? Elena swore. That would explain how the blight always seems to know where we are, where we're evacuating to. It's not predicting our movements, it's seeing them through your eyes. Ceres felt sick. I've been a spy without knowing it. Not your fault, Darius said sharply. You didn't know. Doesn't matter. People died because of me. People died because of him. Darius's voice cut like steel. And he's about to kill thousands more if we don't stop him. Where is Lord Corwin now? Grey March capital, Aldrich said. He returned there after the wedding. Aldrich stopped. He's been petitioning the council, arguing that you're unfit to rule, that your marriage to a shadow mage proves you're compromised. He's positioning himself to take the throne, Alara said. If the Blight destroys Blackstone, kills the king, leaves the kingdom in chaos, he steps in as the voice of stability, the concerned lord who warned everyone. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. We need to move, Darius said. Now, Aldrich, take half the guard and ride for the capital. Arrest Lord Corwin on suspicion of treason. Hold him until we can prove the connection. He'll resist, Aldrich said. He has his own forces, his own allies on the council. Then make it fast and make it public. Don't give him time to maneuver. Darius turned to Elena. Can you sever the link between Cerys and her father? Maybe. If it's blood-based, I can try a binding ritual, but it'll be painful and there's no guarantee it'll work. Do it, Darius looked at Cerys. Are you willing? If it stops him from using me? Absolutely. Then we have a plan. Aldrich, ride. Elena, prepare the ritual. I'm taking the rest of the guard to Blackstone. We need to evacuate the city before the Blight arrives. What about me? Cerys asked. You rest. Recover. No. Cerys swung her legs over the side of the cot. Her body screamed in protest, but she ignored it. If my father is controlling the Blight through shadow magic, I'm the only one who can fight him. You know that. You can barely stand. I'll manage. Cerys met his eyes. This is my fault. My bloodline. My responsibility. I'm not sitting here while you face him alone. It'll kill you. You're not recovered. I'll die anyway, if he wins. At least this way I'm useful. Cerys grabbed his arm. Please, let me help end this. Darius looked at her for a long moment. She saw the war in his eyes, between wanting to protect her and knowing she was right. Fine, he said finally, but you follow my orders. You stay behind the front lines, and if Elena says you're too weak, you retreat. Understood? Understood. Liar, he said, but there was almost affection in it. The next hours were a blur of preparation. Elena performed the severing ritual, a brutal process that involved silver needles, blood, and pain that made Cerys's previous suffering seem gentle. But when it was done, she felt something snap inside her. A connection she hadn't known existed, suddenly gone. Did it work? She gasped. Elena checked the ritual circle. The link is severed. He can't see through you anymore, but... She hesitated. There's a problem. The ritual works both ways. You can't sense him either now, which means we won't know where he is or what he's doing until we see the Blight move. One problem at a time, Cerys said. They rode for Blackstone. The city sat at the base of the northern mountains, built into the rock itself. 30,000 people called it home. Now they were streaming out through the southern gates in a river of humanity, carrying what they could, leaving everything else. The Blight was visible from miles away, a gray wall advancing across the valley like a slow-motion tsunami. It would reach the city in 2 days, maybe less. Darius set up command in the city center, maps everywhere, scouts reporting in constantly, the evacuation proceeding as fast as possible, but it wasn't fast enough. We need more time, Commander Reese said grimly. Half the population is still in the city. The roads are jammed. People are panicking. Then we buy time. Cerys spoke before she could stop herself. I can create another barrier, like before. Hold the Blight back long enough for everyone to escape. That nearly killed you last time, Darius said flatly. Last time I was alone. This time I have help. Cerys looked at Elena. You said shadow magic responds to will and emotion. What if I had something to anchor to, something to keep me from getting lost in the darkness? You're talking about a tether, Elena said slowly. Someone to hold you to reality while you channel. It's theoretically possible, but dangerous for both parties. I'll do it, Darius said immediately. No, you're needed here. The king can't leave the city. Cerys turned to Aldrich. You said you'd protect me. Prove it. Aldrich's mouth twitched. You're not making this easy. Nothing about me is easy. Fair point. He nodded. I'm in. Elena spent the next hour preparing them, drawing connection runes on their wrists, explaining the mental techniques Aldrich would need to anchor Ceres's consciousness while she channeled. This will hurt, Elena warned Aldrich. When she draws on the darkness, you'll feel echoes of it. It could overwhelm you. I've survived worse, Aldrich said. Have you survived someone else's mind tearing itself apart while you're connected to it? Aldrich paled slightly. That's different. Exactly, but it's the only way. Elena looked between them. Are you both sure about this? Ceres and Aldrich exchanged glances. Yeah, Ceres said. We're sure. They positioned themselves on the city's northern wall at dawn. The blight was a mile away now, close enough to see individual tendrils of corruption spreading across the ground. Ceres could feel it calling to the darkness inside her, eager, hungry. Ready? She asked Aldrich. Not even a little. He took her hand, but let's do it anyway. Ceres closed her eyes, reached for the darkness. It came faster now, more eager, like it had been waiting for this. She felt Aldrich's presence immediately, solid, steady, grounding. A lighthouse in the storm. I'm here, his voice echoed in her mind. I've got you. Ceres let the darkness flow. It poured out of her in a torrent, spreading across the ground between the city and the blight. Shadow magic meeting corruption. Two impossible forces preparing to clash. The blight hit the barrier and the world exploded. Ceres felt the impact like a physical blow. The corruption was stronger than before, hungrier. It threw itself against her shadows with terrifying force. And behind it, she felt him, her father. The severing ritual had broken their connection, but proximity brought it back, faint, distorted. But there, found you, his voice whispered through the darkness. My clever daughter, finally realizing what you are. Ceres pushed harder. The barrier held. You can't win, Corwin's voice continued. This power came from me, flows through me. I am its master. You're just a vessel. Wrong, Ceres thought back. I chose this. You're just using it. The blight surged, the barrier cracked. Ceres felt Aldrich's presence strengthen, pulling her back from the edge. Stay focused. Don't engage. Just hold. She held. Minutes stretched into hours. The blight pushed. Ceres pushed back. Behind the city walls, the evacuation continued. Thousands of people streaming through the gates, heading south. Ceres's body was breaking down again. She could feel it. Cells dying, blood vessels rupturing, organs straining. Just a little longer, she begged. Please! The last civilians cleared the southern gate. Retreat! Darius's voice carried across the wall. Ceres, drop the barrier! Everyone out! Ceres let go. The barrier collapsed. The blight surged forward, swallowing the city in seconds. But the city was empty now. Everyone was safe. Ceres collapsed. Aldrich caught her, his own face gray with strain. Did we do it? She whispered. Yeah. Aldrich's voice was rough. Yeah, we did it. They'd saved Blackstone's people, all 30,000, but they'd lost the city itself. Ceres watched from the evacuation camp as the blight consumed Blackstone. The great corruption spread through streets she'd walked days before, swallowed buildings, turned everything to ash. But the people were safe. That had to count for something. Darius found her at the edge of camp, staring north. You saved them, he said quietly. 30,000 lives. Because of you. I lost the city. The city is stone. People matter more. He pulled her close. You matter more. Ceres leaned into him, exhausted beyond measure. My father is still out there, still controlling the blight. We stopped him here, but we know where he is now. Aldrich sent word. They have him cornered in Greymarch capital. He's fortified himself in the Old Vale estate with his personal guard. Then we end this. Ceres pulled back, met Darius's eyes. I'm done running, done reacting. Time to finish it. Together, Darius said. Together. They rode for the capital with every soldier they had. The blight wasn't following. Corwin had pulled it back, consolidated it around his position, preparing for a final stand. The city was in chaos when they arrived. Half the council wanted to negotiate. The other half wanted blood. The common people were terrified, caught between their king and a noble who'd been living among them for decades. Lord Grayson met them at the palace gates. This is madness. Accusing a council member of treason without proof. We have proof, Elena said coldly. She produced documents, genealogy records, magical analysis. Lord Corwin Vale carries dormant shadow magic in his bloodline. He's been amplifying it through his daughter, and he's using it to control the Blight. That's insane, is it? Then explain how the Blight has destroyed every obstacle in its path except the Vale estate. Explain how it moves with purpose instead of randomly spreading. Explain how it knew our evacuation routes. Darius's voice was steel. Corwin is either the unluckiest man in Grey March or he's directing the corruption himself. Grayson paled. Even if that's true, storming the estate will cause civilian casualties. He has hostages, servants, his own family. I'll go, Sarah said. Everyone turned to look at her. He's my father, my bloodline. Let me end this. Sarah stepped forward. I challenge Lord Corwin Vale to single combat. Shadow magic versus shadow magic. No innocents harmed. Winner takes all. He'll kill you, Lady Morgana said flatly. Maybe, but he'll have to face me to do it. And if I win, the Blight loses its controller. It'll collapse. Cerys looked at Darius. It's the only way to end this without destroying half the city. Darius's expression was agonized. I just got you back. I'm not losing you again. You won't. I'm not that easy to kill. She touched his face. Trust me. I do, but I don't trust him. Then come with me. But let me face him first. Cerys turned to the council. Do I have your authorization? Lord Grayson looked at the other council members. Slowly, one by one, they nodded. You have it, Grayson said. May you succeed where we have failed. The Vale estate sat on the eastern edge of the capital, a sprawling complex of stone buildings surrounded by high walls. Those walls were now covered in gray corruption. The Blight had created a barrier, protecting its master. Cerys approached alone, walking across the open ground between the royal forces and the estate. The corruption parted for her, recognized her, let her pass. Inside the courtyard, Lord Corwin Vale waited. He looked different. The cold, distant man who'd ignored her all her life was gone. In his place stood someone consumed by darkness, eyes black, skin pale, shadows writhing around him like living things. My daughter, he said. His voice echoed wrong. Finally ready to fulfill your purpose. My purpose was never yours to decide, Cerys said. I created you, positioned you, ensured you'd bond with the Alpha King, also I could use your connection to access true power. Corwin smiled. It was terrible. You were supposed to be my weapon, my key to destroying the bloodline that destroyed mine. The Vorn line didn't destroy yours. The purge ended 300 years ago. Because they hunted us, burned us, called us abominations. Corwin's voice rose. My ancestors survived by hiding, by suppressing her power, by living in shame for generations. All because the Vorns decided shadow magic was too dangerous to exist. So you decided to prove them right? Cerys felt the darkness inside her responding to his proximity. You killed thousands, destroyed cities, became exactly what they feared. I became what I was meant to be, what you were meant to be. Corwin extended his hand. Join me. Together, we can reshape this kingdom. No more fear, no more hiding. Shadow mages ruling as we were meant to. I'm not a mage, I'm just someone trying to survive. You're my daughter, my legacy. I'm nothing to you. I never was. Cerys called the darkness. It came eagerly. You're not my father, you're just a man who forgot what made him human. Then I'll remind you what power really means. Corwin unleashed the Blight. It crashed into Cerys like a tidal wave. She threw up a shadow barrier, but his power was immense, centuries of compressed rage given form. The darkness inside her surged to meet it, shadow versus shadow, father versus daughter. Two impossible forces locked in combat. Cerys felt herself being pushed back. Corwin was stronger, more experienced. He'd been cultivating this power for decades while she'd barely had weeks. I can't beat him, she realized with horror. I'm not strong enough. Then don't fight alone. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, the darkness itself speaking clearly for the first time. You've been trying to contain me, control me. But I'm not your enemy. I'm your strength. Let me help. If I let you in completely, I'll lose myself. No. You'll become yourself. Finally. Fully. Ceres hesitated. Then she opened the door. The darkness flooded in, not consuming her, but completing her. She felt herself expand, grow, become something more than human, but not less. Power and identity merging into something new. When she opened her eyes, shadows wreathed her like wings. Corwin's expression shifted from triumph to fear. What? Ceres didn't answer with words. She answered with darkness. It poured from her in a controlled torrent, meeting Corwin's blight and driving it back. Not with brute force, with precision, with understanding. She could see the corruption structure now, see how he'd twisted shadow magic into something sick, and she knew how to unravel it. Ceres reached into the blight's core, found the anchor point, Corwin's own hatred, his rage, his fear, and severed it. The corruption collapsed. Corwin screamed. The darkness that had surrounded him evaporated. He stood revealed, just a man again. Old, tired, defeated. How? He whispered. Because I chose love over hatred, connection over isolation, life over power. Ceres stepped forward. You forgot that shadow magic isn't just destruction, it's also protection, shelter. The darkness that keeps you safe while you heal. She placed her hand on his chest. Let the darkness flow through him, not to kill, to cleanse. Corwin gasped. The corruption that had been eating him from within dissolved. When it was gone, he collapsed. Ceres caught him, lowered him gently to the ground. Why? Corwin asked, voice breaking. After everything I did. Because you're still my father, even if you never acted like it. Ceres stood. And because I'm not you. I choose mercy. The blight across Grey March began to dissolve. Without Corwin's will to direct it, the corruption simply stopped, faded, returned to whatever darkness it had come from. By the time Darius and the guards entered the courtyard, it was over. Ceres stood in the center, shadows fading from around her, exhausted but alive. Darius ran to her, pulled her into his arms. It's done. It's done. Around them, people began to emerge from their homes. Nobles, commoners, servants, all staring at the woman who'd saved them. Someone began to applaud. It started slow. One person, then another, then dozens, then hundreds. The sound swelled, not just approval, but recognition. The bastard they'd mocked, the shadow mage they'd feared, had become their savior. Ceres stood in the wreckage of her father's estate, covered in blood and shadows, and let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe she'd finally found where she belonged. The applause continued, but Ceres barely heard it. She stood in the ruins of her father's courtyard, Darius's arms around her, watching as Lord Corwin Vale was carried away on a stretcher. His guards had surrendered without a fight once the blight collapsed. Now he'd face trial, imprisonment, maybe execution. She should have felt something, triumph, vindication, relief. Instead, she just felt hollow. Come on, Darius said quietly. Let's get you out of here. They walked through streets lined with people. No longer hiding in their homes, they'd emerged to see the aftermath. To see the woman who'd stopped the darkness that had terrorized their kingdom for months. Some stared with fear, others with awe. A few with something that might have been gratitude. Ceres kept her head up and her expression neutral. She'd learned that much from Alara's lessons. Never let them see weakness. Never show doubt. But inside, she was shaking. The palace felt different when they returned. News had spread faster than wildfire. The blight was gone. The corruption dissolved. The threat ended. Nobles who'd avoided Ceres for weeks suddenly wanted audiences. Council members who'd called for her execution now praised her courage. It made her sick. Hypocrites, she muttered to Aldrich as they walked through the main hall. Welcome to politics, he said dryly. Everyone loves a hero, especially one they can claim they supported all along. Lord Grayson intercepted them at the council chamber doors. He looked older than Ceres remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper. Your Majesty, my lady. He bowed, actually bowed to Ceres. The council requests an emergency session to discuss Lord Corwin's trial and other matters. What other matters? Darius asked. Grayson's gaze shifted to Ceres. The status of shadow magic in Grey March. Given recent events, the Council believes the laws regarding its practice may need revision. Ceres went cold. You want to legalize it. We want to acknowledge reality. You saved this kingdom using the very power we've outlawed for 3 centuries. That creates a certain contradiction. Grayson gestured toward the chamber. Please, the council is waiting. The chamber was full, all 5 council members present, plus 24 nobles in the observers' gallery. Ceres recognized her stepmother and Gregor among them. Lady Ismene looked like she'd swallowed glass. Gregor just looked drunk. Let's make this quick, Darius said, taking his throne. Ceres stood beside him, her place now, though it still felt strange. What's the council's position? Lady Morgana stood. In light of recent events, we propose a full pardon for Ceres Vale's use of shadow magic. Additionally, we recommend striking the prohibition laws from the legal code. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Shadow magic nearly destroyed Grey March 300 years ago, Commander Reese said carefully. What's changed? Ceres changed, Scholar Petros said, adjusting his spectacles. She demonstrated that shadow magic, properly controlled, can be used for protection rather than destruction. She broke a bloodline curse, defeated the Blight, saved tens of thousands of lives. She also lost control multiple times, Lord Harwin pointed out, caused significant damage during training, nearly killed herself repeatedly. She was learning, Elena said sharply. The old woman sat in an advisor's chair, looking tired but resolute. Shadow magic has been forbidden for so long that there's no institutional knowledge on how to teach it safely. She had to figure it out alone, under combat conditions, while fighting for her life. The fact that she succeeded at all is remarkable. Remarkable or terrifying? Lady Morgana's expression was unreadable. We're discussing granting legal status to a power that, in the wrong hands, could destroy the kingdom. In the wrong hands, any power can destroy. Alara's voice rang out from the gallery. The former queen stood, leaning on her cane. Steel can kill, fire can burn, water can drown. We don't outlaw those things. We teach people to use them responsibly. With respect, Your Highness, this is different, is it? Or are we just afraid of what we don't understand? Alara's gaze swept the council. 3 centuries ago, shadow mages were hunted because they posed a threat to the throne, but the real threat was our own fear. We burned innocent people alongside the guilty, drove an entire magical discipline underground, created the very conditions that allowed someone like Corwin Vale to weaponize it in secret. Silence. If we continue the prohibition, Alara continued, we guarantee that shadow magic will remain hidden, unregulated, dangerous. But if we bring it into the light, teach it properly, establish guidelines, we can prevent another Corwin. Lord Grayson leaned back in his chair. You're suggesting an academy, training protocols, oversight. I'm suggesting we stop being cowards and start being smart. Alara sat down with a thump. Darius looked at Ceres. You've been quiet. What do you think? Every eye turned to her. Ceres took a breath. I think I'm the wrong person to ask. Confused murmurs. I never wanted this power, Ceres continued. I didn't ask for it. I don't particularly like it. It's painful, dangerous, and it's nearly killed me more times than I can count. She met Grayson's eyes. But it's part of me. I can't cut it out any more than I can cut out my own heart. So you support legalization? Morgana asked. I support not executing people for something they can't control. Beyond that? Ceres shrugged. I'm one person, one bloodline. For all we know, I'm the only shadow mage left in Grey March. Writing laws for an entire magical discipline based on one person seems premature. Then what do you suggest? Petros asked. A conditional pardon, for me specifically, with the understanding that if other shadow mages emerge, we deal with them case by case. Ceres glanced at Elena. And funding for research. If we're going to understand this power, we need resources, books, texts, whatever survived the purge. That's surprisingly reasonable, Harwin said. I have my moments. The council voted. The conditional pardon passed unanimously. Research funding approved with a 4-to-1 majority. Only Morgana abstained, citing budget concerns. It wasn't everything, but it was something. After the session ended, Gregor intercepted Ceres in the hallway. He looked worse up close, bloodshot eyes, stale wine on his breath. "Congratulations," he said. The word dripped sarcasm. "The bastard becomes a hero. Father would be so proud." "Father tried to destroy the kingdom. I'm not sure his pride matters much anymore." "You destroyed him. Took everything he built, everything we had." Gregor's voice rose. "The Vale name is ruined. Our estate seized. Our fortune frozen pending trial. Because of you." "Because of him," Saris corrected. "I just stopped him from killing more people." "You're a hypocrite. You used the same power he did." "No, I used it to protect. He used it to destroy. That's not the same thing." Saris stepped closer. "And for the record, I'm not sorry. You and Father and Ismini spent my entire life treating me like garbage. Now you're upset that I didn't let myself be buried with the rest of your legacy? That's not my problem." Gregor's face twisted. "You think you've won, that marrying the king makes you untouchable, but the nobility will never accept you. You'll always be the bastard who got lucky." "Maybe." Saris smiled without warmth. "But I'll be a living bastard, which is more than you can say for Father's reputation." She walked away, leaving him sputtering in the corridor. Darius found her on the palace balcony an hour later, watching the sunset paint the city gold. "You handled the council well," he said, joining her at the railing. "I didn't throw anyone out a window. That's growth." Significant growth. He was quiet for a moment. "Gregor cornered you." "News travels fast. He's being investigated, along with the rest of the Vale family. If any of them aided Corwin, they'll face charges." Darius's jaw tightened. "Your stepmother is already trying to make deals, offering testimony in exchange for leniency." "Of course she is. Ismini always was a survivor." Saris didn't feel much about that either. "What happens to Father?" "Trial in 3 weeks. The evidence is overwhelming. He'll be convicted." Darius paused. "The council will push for execution." "Will you allow it?" "I don't know." Darius turned to face her. "He murdered thousands, weaponized magic for mass destruction, committed high treason. By law, he should die, but—" He stopped. "But he's my father," Saris finished quietly, "and you're wondering if I want mercy for him. Do you?" Saris thought about the man who'd ignored her for 23 years, who'd positioned her like a chess piece, who'd watched her suffer and felt nothing, who'd chosen revenge over his own daughter's life. "No," she said finally. "I don't want him dead, but I don't want him free either. Let him spend the rest of his life in a cell, remembering what he destroyed. That seems more fitting than a quick execution. Life imprisonment instead of death. The council won't like it. The council can deal with it. You're the king. Your word is law." Saris looked at him. "Unless you disagree?" "I think," Darius said slowly, "that mercy is harder than vengeance and more powerful. If you can show compassion to someone who showed you none, it proves you're nothing like him. Or it proves I'm weak. You broke a 300-year-old curse, defeated the blight, and saved the kingdom. No one's going to call you weak." He took her hand. "But they might call you merciful, and right now Grey March needs that more than another execution." 3 weeks later, Lord Corwin Vale stood trial. The proceedings took place in the Grand Hall, the same place where Saris had been rejected months before. The symmetry wasn't lost on anyone. Corwin looked smaller now, diminished. The shadow magic that had sustained him was gone, leaving just an old man in chains. The evidence was presented. Witness after witness testified to the blight's path, the villages destroyed, the lives lost. Magical experts confirmed the connection between Corwin's power and the corruption. He didn't deny it, didn't defend himself, just sat in silence as his crimes were laid bare. When asked if he had anything to say, he looked directly at Saris. "I should have loved you," he said quietly. "Your mother begged me to, said you deserved better. I told her you were a mistake, a tool to be used." His voice cracked. "She died hating me for that, and I spent 23 years proving her right." Saris's throat tightened. "I can't ask for forgiveness," Corwin continued. "I don't deserve it. But I want you to know, the blight, the destruction, all of it, it was never about you. It was about my own rage, my own failure to be human." He looked away. "You became everything I couldn't. strong, brave, good. I'm glad I failed to destroy that. The council deliberated for less than an hour, guilty on all charges. Lord Grayson stood to announce the sentence. Lord Corwin Vale, you are hereby stripped of all titles, lands, and privileges. You are sentenced to life imprisonment in the deep vaults, without possibility of parole or release. May your confinement grant you time to reflect on the lives you've destroyed. No execution. Life in darkness instead. Corwin met Cerys's eyes one last time, nodded once. Then the guards led him away. Cerys didn't cry. She'd used up her tears for him years ago, but she did feel something like closure. The rebuilding began immediately. Blackstone was gone, consumed entirely by the blight, but the land itself was recovering. The corruption had dissolved when Corwin fell, leaving the soil scarred but not dead. Elena believed it would take decades to fully heal, but it could be done. The northern territories were being resettled, people returning to their lands, rebuilding homes, replanting fields. It would take years, maybe generations, but Grey March would recover. And Cerys found herself at the center of it. Not by choice, not because she wanted attention, but because she'd become a symbol, proof that the darkness could be faced and defeated. That power could be wielded for protection instead of destruction. People started coming to her, asking for help, blessing, advice. She hated it. I'm not a saint, she complained to Alara one afternoon. They were in the former queen's private garden taking tea. I'm just someone who didn't die when I probably should have. That's all saints are, Alara said placidly. Survivors who let people project meaning onto them. How do you stand it? Being watched constantly, having everything you do analyzed. Practice and a thick skin. Alara sipped her tea. But also purpose. When you know what you're working toward, the scrutiny becomes bearable. Oh, what if I don't have a purpose? What if I just wanted to survive, and now I don't know what to do with myself? Then you find one, or you let it find you. Alara set down her cup. You broke the prohibition on shadow magic, saved the kingdom, proved that darkness isn't inherently evil. That's significant. The question is, what will you do with that significance? Cerys didn't have an answer, but over the following weeks, one began to take shape. She started working with Elena, going through the old texts that had survived the purge, learning the theory behind shadow magic instead of just the instinct, understanding what she was instead of just what she could do. They found others, not many, 3 in the first month, 5 by the second, people who'd suppressed their abilities their entire lives, terrified of discovery. Now, with the laws changed, they emerged cautiously. All of them were weak, untrained, barely able to manifest more than parlor tricks. But they were there, and they needed help. Cerys and Elena established a training program. Small at first, just the 5 students, meeting in a converted tower room, learning control, understanding limits, building strength slowly instead of forcing it. It was exhausting, frustrating. Half the time, Cerys felt like she had no idea what she was doing, but it was also meaningful. You're good at this, Elena said one evening after a particularly difficult session. Teaching. You have patience I didn't expect. I remember what it was like, not knowing, being terrified of my own power. Cerys looked at the notes they'd compiled, lesson plans, safety protocols, emergency procedures. If I can make it easier for them, maybe all of this was worth something. It was worth more than something. You're building a legacy. I'm building a safety net. Big difference. Not really, Elena smiled. Both keep people from falling. Darius found his own purpose in reconstruction. He threw himself into rebuilding, not just Blackstone, but the entire northern infrastructure, roads, supply lines, communication networks. He was good at it, better than Cerys expected. He had a mind for logistics, for seeing how pieces fit together. And he listened to people, really listened, instead of just issuing orders. The kingdom noticed. Approval ratings, something Cerys hadn't even known existed, climbed steadily. People who'd questioned Darius's fitness to rule after he married a shadow mage now praised his leadership, his vision, his strength. They like you now, Cerys said one night as they reviewed reconstruction reports in their shared study. They like results. I'm just providing them. Darius set down a ledger, rubbed his eyes. But yes, things are better than they were. Because of you. Because of us. He reached across the desk, took her hand. I couldn't have done this alone. The curse would have killed me. The blight would have destroyed everything. You saved me, saved the kingdom. You saved me first, gave me a choice when everyone else just wanted me gone. I gave you a political marriage and a prison sentence disguised as a crown. You gave me a chance to be useful, to matter. Sarah squeezed his hand. That's more than anyone else offered. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. It still felt new, this thing between them, fragile in some ways, but also solid, built on shared trauma and mutual respect and something deeper that neither of them had words for yet. I love you, Darius said suddenly. I don't say it enough. You say it plenty. I should say it more. He stood, came around the desk, pulled her to her feet. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Even if you did nearly die 17 times in the process. 18. You're forgetting the incident with the dampening crystals. I'm trying to forget that one. He kissed her forehead. Thank you. For surviving. For staying. For choosing me back. Saris rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Strong, steady, alive because she'd refused to let the curse win. Always, she said quietly. The coronation took place 6 months after the Blight's defeat. Not Saris's coronation, she'd been queen in name since the wedding, but the first formal crowning ceremony, the symbolic moment when the kingdom acknowledged what had been true all along. The grand hall was packed. Every noble in Grey March had come. Commoners filled the galleries. Even representatives from neighboring kingdoms attended, curious about the shadow mage who'd become queen. Saris wore white, not the gray of her rejection, not the dark colors people expected from someone who wielded darkness. Just pure, simple white, embroidered with silver thread that caught the light. The crown was surprisingly light. Delicate silver vines with small diamonds set like dew. Nothing like the heavy ceremonial crown Darius wore. This is ridiculous, she muttered to him as they processed down the aisle. It's tradition. I hate tradition. I know. Smile anyway. She smiled. It felt less fake than it would have 6 months ago. The high priest performed the ceremony. Blessings, prayers, words about duty and service and the sacred bond between ruler and ruled. When he placed the crown on Saris's head, the hall erupted in applause. She looked out at the sea of faces. Some still held fear, others skepticism, but many, more than she'd expected, showed genuine acceptance, even approval. These people had watched her fight for them, bleed for them, nearly die for them. Maybe that meant something after all. The feast afterward was overwhelming, course after course of rich food, toasts that went on forever, nobles competing to seem the most supportive of the new queen. Saris escaped to the balcony halfway through. Aldrich found her there, predictably. Hiding already? He handed her a glass of wine. Strategically withdrawing, different thing. Of course. He leaned against the railing beside her. You did well in there, very regal. I felt like a fraud. Everyone does at first. Eventually you get used to it. Did you get used to it? Aldrich was quiet for a moment. I got used to the armor, the role, the expectations. But there's always a part of me that remembers being just a soldier. No titles, no ceremony, just duty. Do you miss it? Sometimes. But then I remember that simple soldiers don't get to change the kingdom. You need the crown for that, the power, the voice. He looked at her. You have all 3 now. Question is, what will you do with them? Saris thought about the shadow mages in training, about the research Elena was conducting, about the slow, careful work of changing minds. I think, she said slowly, I'll try to make things better. Not perfect, just better than they were. That's all anyone can do. Aldrich raised his glass. To better. To better, Saris echoed. They drank, watching the city lights spread out below them like stars. The changes came gradually. The shadow magic training program expanded. More students emerged from hiding. A proper curriculum developed. Safety protocols established. Within a year, they had 20 students. Within 2, 40. Elena formally established the Shadow Academy, the first magical institution of its kind in 3 centuries. Ceres served as patron, though Elena did most of the actual work. The council grumbled about funding, about risk, about tradition, but the students didn't attack anyone, didn't lose control, didn't become the monsters everyone feared. Slowly, grudgingly, the kingdom began to accept that shadow magic could exist without destroying everything. Darius's reconstruction efforts bore fruit. Blackstone was rebuilt, not as it had been, but better, more sustainable, with infrastructure designed to survive future threats. The northern territories recovered, trade routes reopened, prosperity returned. And through it all, Ceres and Darius ruled together. Not perfectly. They fought sometimes, about policy, about priorities, about whether Ceres was pushing herself too hard or Darius was being too cautious. But they fought as equals, partners. The bond never fully reformed. That golden thread had been severed too completely. But they didn't need it. They had something better, a connection built on choice rather than fate, on love earned through trial rather than granted by magic. 2 years after the coronation, Ceres woke to morning light filtering through the bedroom windows. Darius was already awake, watching her with an expression she'd learned to recognize. Contentment, peace, something he'd rarely shown before all of this. "What?" she asked, voice rough with sleep. "Just thinking." "Dangerous." "Probably." He pulled her closer. "I was thinking about that day, at the altar, when I rejected you." Ceres went still. "Why?" "Because if I could go back knowing everything that was going to happen, the blight, the curse, the war, all of it, I'd still make the same choice." She pulled back to look at him. "You'd still reject me?" "Yes, because the rejection led to you discovering your power, which led to you saving the kingdom. If I'd accepted the bond, you never would have become who you are. We never would have built what we have." He touched her face. "The bond would have trapped us both. The rejection set us free." Ceres considered that. "So you're saying your biggest mistake was actually your best decision?" "I'm saying fate tried to write our story. We ripped it up and wrote our own." Darius smiled. "And ours is better. Ours has more near-death experiences." "That's what makes it exciting." Ceres laughed, kissed him. Let herself believe fully and finally that this was real, that she'd gone from unwanted to essential, from powerless to powerful, from rejected to chosen. Not because fate decreed it, because she'd fought for it. Later that day, she stood in the Shadow Academy training hall, watching her students practice. They were getting better, stronger, more controlled. One of them, a young woman named Kira, successfully manifested a shadow shield on her 3rd try. She gasped in delight, the darkness swirling around her hands like smoke. "Excellent," Elena said. "Now maintain it for 30 seconds." Kira's face scrunched in concentration. The shield held steady. Ceres felt something unfamiliar in her chest. Pride, maybe. Or hope. These students would never face what she'd faced, would never have to learn through trial by fire, would never wonder if they were monsters, because she'd made sure of it. "You're smiling," Elena said, appearing at her elbow. "Am I?" "It's disturbing. Stop it." "Can't. I'm having a moment of satisfaction. Let me enjoy it." Elena's mouth twitched. "Fine, but don't make a habit of it. Satisfaction makes you complacent." Noted. They watched the students in companionable silence. Outside, the city hummed with life, the kingdom recovering, the future uncertain but no longer terrifying. Ceres had been rejected at an altar, had unleashed darkness, had nearly died more times than she could count. She'd also broken curses, saved thousands, and proven that power didn't have to corrupt. That darkness could shelter instead of destroy. That a bastard with nothing could become a queen with everything, not through prophecy or destiny or fate, through choice, her choice. And in a world where power was feared and love was dangerous, she'd chosen both. Had proven that strength and compassion weren't opposites, that you could wield the darkness and still remain human. She'd been meant to be discarded. Instead, she became the one no one could replace, the woman who smiled when the world expected her to break, who fought when everyone expected her to surrender, who loved when it nearly killed her and survived anyway. Ceres Vale. Shadow Mage, Queen of Greymarch, living proof that sometimes the best thing fate can do is get out of your way and let you write your own story. And she was just getting started.